here. We don't have to...
Thank you. Please enjoy Fanatic.
Paul, come back. Paul. If you have a couple minutes, if you don't mind sitting down, would you guys like it if Paul would sit down with us for a little bit? Please. No, please, Paul. Please.
You know that you're old and fat when just sitting down gets a major pop nowadays.
Well, welcome to Not Sam Wrestling, Paul Heyman. It is an absolute pleasure, and I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't start this interview with a question that I don't generally ask anymore. What's the haps?
What's the haps?
Yeah.
Sam, not Sam. New York City and Fanatics. That's the haps.
Yeah.
They are the haps. We are the haps.
Beautiful. Now, Paul Heyman, you and the bloodline have brought a word to professional wrestling fandom that I felt like wasn't there before. And that word is cinema. The things that you and Roman Reigns and the Usos and Solo Sikoa and the rest of the bloodline have done.
Fuck you, Solo! Fuck you, Solo! Fuck you, Solo! Fuck you, Solo! Fuck you, Solo!
If you're gonna whisper it like that, don't bother saying it. If you're gonna say it with some passion.
Fuck you, Solo! 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 Fuck you, Solo!
What does cinema mean to you?
I mean, I'm not the one that originally described it as cinema. It's something that was bestowed upon us because trying to find the word of what we were doing became difficult because we weren't doing anything that was defined by conventional descriptions within the realm of professional wrestling or sports entertainment. But to me, it's the same thing that we did back in ECW. We stopped insulting the audience of the fans. We understood that you're looking for sophisticated storylines. We understood that it's no longer the day of Hulkamania. It's no longer the day of eyes bugging out of the head and luring the audience in to cheering for us or booing us, that we will earn it on merit. That if we don't deserve the cheers, we're not gonna ask for them because we didn't earn it. That we take compelling storylines, that we look at TV shows like Peaky Blinders or The Sopranos or The Wire or Breaking Bad. Notice how these are all gangster shows, by the way. Or you look at the movies that become popular, and then the common thread is that you care about these characters. That even the good guys, the baby faces, have qualities that are kind of repugnant, and even the most disgusting heels will have a measure of redemption to them. That it's not just all black and white. That there is a middle ground, and sometimes that middle ground gets blurred, and then you have a right to choose for yourself which character you like more than the other. So it's just a matter of being modern. It's just a matter of realizing that the way that pro wrestling / sports entertainment was being presented was done. It was draconian, it was antiquated, it was old, it was played out. And it was time for something new and different and fresh and something that played to what the audience itself had been crying for.
Yeah, and I think that that's right. Do you, when you realized that this was working, like, okay, everything counts is a motto of Not Sam Wrestling. It's our rule number 3. Everything counts. With that philosophy, and the Bloodline is entirely responsible for that, in my opinion. When you're keeping that in mind, are you doing things like, let's put this breadcrumb here and we can revisit in 3 to 6 months? Or 3 to 6 months later, are you going, you know, we did this back then, that should be referenced?
No. Every single solitary moment, every frame that we're in has meaning for something. And sometimes it's an intentional misdirect, but it does mean something, because that misdirect will play out in a match. Or 3 months from now, it'll play out in a promo. In the very first scene that we had after Roman Reigns lost the title at WrestleMania to Cody Rhodes, we come into the locker room and Cody Rhodes now has the champion's locker room.
Yeah.
And Solo wants to kick down the door and reclaim it. And I tell Solo, number one, it's not our locker room anymore. Winning and losing matters. Number 2, losing has consequences. And number 3, if we want it back, we have to take it back our way, and that's by order of the tribal chief. So number 1, Solo that night takes Jimmy Uso out of the Bloodline, and he says, winning and losing matters, right? Losing has consequences, right? And when Tama Tonga and Solo took out Jimmy Uso, they looked at me and said, by orders of the tribal chief, which of course didn't make sense to me until we're in Madison Square Garden 3 months later, and Solo turns to me and says, acknowledge me as your tribal chief. So, from the very first scene after Roman lost the title, that led 3 months later to that moment in Madison Square Garden, because when they refer to the tribal chief, they mean Solo, and they took my words of winning and losing matters and losing its consequences and shoved it straight up my tuchus. So everything that we say, everything that we do means something, because that real estate on television is worth millions and millions of dollars. We're going to make everything, and we're going to get the most out of every frame that we're on.
And that was also where all that speculation is allowed to come in, because it becomes now, if every word counts, we can speculate on how those words are interpreted. How did he take that word? Well, he said the tribal chief, but the tribal chief is actually this guy, and now we can have this conversation that has roots and depth on the levels that, like you said, some of those great television shows do. Why is Paulie Walnuts looking at Tony like that? Is he, and that's now become a part of professional wrestling, and I don't think it was there before.
Well, one of the things that we all felt that was really missing from the presentation was intrigue. Just conversation. Like, did you see Friday's show? Hey, when he said that, what do you think that meant? And who do you think he was referring to? And why would he say that? So all of a sudden, it's not just, oh, well, he won the match, and oh man, oh, he lost the match. It's a lot deeper than that now, and everything has meaning that opened it to discussion and interpretation, to the point where there's now reason, you know, the old expression, water cooler talk. Now there's reason for water cooler talk. Now there's reason for open debate as to what has happened, and more importantly, what will happen in the future.
You know, you brought up Madison Square Garden, and a lot of people, that's the last time we saw you, and there were people that wondered if you'd even be at Fanatics Fest, you know, in a real way because of what happened. First of all, at this stage in your life, let alone your career, to be involved in that level of physicality, where you're going to take a power bomb through a table, and a real power bomb through a table. With all due respect, you've never been an athlete, let alone right now. This is not an insult.
It's not an insult, I'm no tough guy.
No, he's got a lot of other things.
That's a real power bomb through a real table, really in Madison Square Garden, in real live New York City.
Yeah. So, how do you wrap your head around this idea that this is happening tonight, and this is a thing that the audience, myself included, would have factored on that list of, yeah, but they'll never do this?
Well, they have to do that. I mean, that's the exclamation point of what they're doing. At some point, for Solo to become the tribal chief, for Tama Tonga to become the right-hand man, for Jacob Fatu to become the enforcer, you have to take out the Wise Man. I'm the last link to the original bloodline. I'm the last link to Roman Reigns. So if you don't take me out, then you still have this extension of what the original bloodline was. But for Solo to become the dictator of the island of relevancy, for Solo to take over as the tribal chief, at some point, the Wise Man has to go. And if you don't take me out, then it's just an extension. So there's no better place for them to make their move than in Madison Square Garden, especially a week after Jacob Fatu debuted, and especially coming off all the momentum of his debut, and 5 weeks before SummerSlam, where Solo's going to challenge Cody Rhodes for the undisputed title. This was, if in hindsight, the absolute perfect moment for them to make their move. And if they're gonna make their move, you can't half-ass it. You can't just thumb me in the throat and drop me. If you're gonna go, you go big. If you don't go big, we don't belong on the main stage at Madison Square Garden.
And again, with all due respect, you look terrible going into it. You looked quite bad. I think you already had people worrying because you didn't look like you were in the condition to be walking out into an arena in front of people, let alone to be dropped, then picked up, then dropped again through a table. I mean, as a human being, was there any part of you going, this could go horribly wrong?
I think this being in it is going horribly wrong. I think the whole object is that every moment after Roman Reigns lost the title is going horribly wrong for the Wise Man. And I live it. And
you live it.
My tribal chief and my acknowledgement of my tribal chief is my fountain of youth. My ability to acknowledge Roman Reigns as my tribal chief makes me a young man. And every moment that I am away from my tribal chief.
RTC! 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 RTC!
Well, I think someone threw the tribal chief in the dryer.
So every moment away from my tribal chief, I age rapidly because I don't have the moment to bestow my appreciation and my worship and my acknowledgement of my tribal chief, Roman Reigns.
Because there's another word people are using now alongside Roman Reigns, and that word is aura. Aura. This is the word. I mean, the kids are using this word aura, but in the wrestling world, I think very quickly the tribal chief has reserved that as his from the moment he stepped out at SummerSlam. This is what people are seeing. Is there any part of you listening to that reaction, not only that he got at SummerSlam, but that he's gotten at every SmackDown that he's been on since? Is there any part of you that goes, man, I would have loved to have been by his side to feel what Roman is feeling?
No, because I feel it through him when I see it. It's why now everyone is so connected with Roman Reigns, with the OTC, because when everyone stands and everyone throws up the ones and everyone cheers for Roman Reigns, you all feel it. And the intimacy from that character is with each and every individual and with the audience in mass. So when he's cheered to that extent, I feel it because he is my tribal chief and I live vicariously through him.
I think one of my favorite things that I saw, I think it was on the biography of Roman Reigns that A&E did. It was either that or your biography on A&E, was midway through the documentary interview. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Paul starts talking into his phone to let Roman know that his parking has been secured. And it's like, that's one of those moments that we go, oh, this is real life. This is real life. So the same way I'm going, as a human being, you can't want to get powerbombed through a table. You go, no, I live as the wise man lives, for the positives and the negatives. Are we going to see Paul Heyman, the wise man, back on television anytime soon?
There are three honest answers to that. The first one, which you won't like, is everyone who has an extended run in this industry, and mine is now almost 40 years and almost all of it at the very, very top. Thank you. You always look for what's the perfect exit. You know, but you don't want to, you know, it's better to burn out than fade away, you know. The last thing you want to do is have an unglamorous exit and say, I only got out 18 months earlier when that happened. So I felt that way at ECW One Night Stand, like, you know, if I'm going to get out, this is the moment to get out. But Brock and I even joked the night that he conquered the streak, hey, if we're going to get out, this is getting out on top. If there was ever a moment that I could look back on and say that was a perfect ending, it was what happened in Madison Square Garden. So that's number one. Number two, what I don't want to do is just be on television for the sake of being on television. Everything we do has to be relevant. That's the whole theory behind the island of relevancy. So if I were to have come back at SummerSlam with Roman Reigns, it wouldn't have meant anything. There was nothing for me to contribute to that moment. If I had to come back last week on television with Roman Reigns, there was nothing for me to do. I could introduce him, okay, but that's a moment. It's not a moment that extends. It goes back to saying winning and losing matters, by orders of the tribal chief. When I come back on television, if I come back on television, when I do, that moment is going to set up a year worth of storylines. I will come back when it's relevant for me to come back, when I'm needed to come back, when I can add to Roman Reigns and not just ride his coattails and hang off of his glory. I love Jimmy Hart. I really do. I have so much respect for Jimmy Hart. But I don't want to be Jimmy Hart carrying the boas for Hulk Hogan. I want to do something that contributes so much to the act that you sit there and say, I love Roman Reigns, but my God, I love him so much more with the Wise Man Paul Heyman.
My wise man. That's my wise man right there. That's my wise man.
We wise man, wise man, wise man, wise man, wise man, wise man, wise man.
So the third answer to that is, if you really want to know if I'm coming back and when I'm coming back, stay tuned, bitches. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I love it. I mean, you hear them chanting Wise Man, right? There was that moment when you said that you don't acknowledge that you are not my tribal chief. Classic moment. And to me, why it's such a historical moment is not just that it worked, not just that it made us feel, but that was the moment where it was confirmed that after all the years of Paul Heyman being the most vile, hated villain and carrying that with him, whether he was doing an interview like this, no matter where he was, all those years of him doing that, in that moment, you transitioned over to the other side and gave fans like us permission to cheer for not only that moment, but your entire body of work. You haven't had much of it, but what was it like in that moment to be a good guy?
Well, I mean, I experienced fan acceptance when I owned ECW.
Of course.
And I would come out and do the cult leader speeches with the long leather jacket and the baseball hat and the ponytail and ECW. And doing most of them stoned out of my freaking mind. Well, if you play to an audience that's stoned, when in Rome, or at the Elks Lodge. So, what it was like for me was, it worked, it hit, it resonated, they cared, they were into what we were doing. It goes back to something that I said, I don't remember to whom, but it carried on, it got me through a lot of times in the backstage at MSG. And I was a photographer, I was like 17 years old. I don't remember if it was Albano or Freddie Blassie or someone, it may have been Gorilla Monsoon, and someone said, so kid, what's your philosophy of this industry? And my answer, because I just didn't have a better soundbite, was, well, what works, works, and what doesn't, doesn't. And then I walked away, and they went, oh my God, that kid knows what he's talking about. And everybody was willing to talk to me after that. It worked. So, I mean, I can hyper-analyze why it worked, but it goes back to who are these two people, what is their conflict, and why should I care enough to pay to see them? There was enough conflict between Solo's claim of being the tribal chief and Roman Reigns' claim of being the tribal chief, that when I told Solo he's not my tribal chief, everyone in the garden was with me saying it.
How early did you know that once Roman loses the title, he would become a fan favorite? That once Roman loses that title, the fans would do for him what they did for you and, make him the hero?
I think we've always kind of known it because, I mean, Roman Reigns returned on television. Roman Reigns returned at SummerSlam 2020. And then he was on that Friday night's television show, and the last 5 seconds of the show, the camera pans over, and I'm sitting on the couch with him. And of course, the headlines are, Brock Lesnar's advocate is now with Roman Reigns. That Sunday, he wins the title. So our first appearance together officially on television, he's coming out with the title. The entire run of the tribal chief has been as champion. The whole story was built around many different things. Family, emotion, Sami Zayn, acceptance, love of family, hatred of our enemies, but the core of it all was always the power base on the island of relevancy of the head of the table is defined by the title itself. So we knew after losing the title, we were gonna have to write completely different stories because our ambitions, our motivations, our sensitivity, the core of the characters, The theme is now different. We've had 4 years of the theme of the champion Roman Reigns. Now it's a new theme. So going into Mania, we knew once Mania's over, this is going to be a lot different for us. So when I did the Hall of Fame speech, and Roman and I, thank you.
Give it up for that. I mean, it was one of the great Hall of Fame speeches. Amazing.
And Roman and I both knew where this was all headed with genuine emotion. We decided not to be in character, but to show the world just how much we care for each other. And once you saw, wow, these two guys really do give a damn about each other. This is not just a working relationship. They love each other. The wise man does love his tribal chief. The tribal chief loves his wise man. These two are genuinely friends with respect and admiration and affirmation and acknowledgement of each other. And once the public saw that, we already turned babyface before you even knew it. You were cheering for Cody Rhodes to beat him for the title, but you were ready for the tribal chief and his wise man to do something different than the villains we have been for the previous 3.5 years.
Would you say that's right? Were you ready?
Yeah!
I would say that's 100% right. And I think that you're especially correct about that relationship showing itself at the Hall of Fame, because I remember going on the podcast and saying Roman Reigns wouldn't induct the wise man because Paul Heyman, you know, other people, CM Punk or whoever has been a Paul Heyman guy. Paul Heyman is a Roman Reigns guy. It wouldn't make sense for Roman until you clicked it in and go, no, this is reality now. And all of a sudden we're relating on a different level. But I want to talk about that weekend and what led up to that weekend, because you were talking about sort of the meticulous effort that goes into the storytelling of the bloodline, but at the same time we all saw the documentary about the behind the scenes of WrestleMania 40. And we all lived the build to what is the main event going to be, and do they even know what the main event's going to be? How do you tell stories with meticulous attention to detail while at the same time have everything changing all the time and not know what's going on?
Well, we always know what's going on because number one, we stay well informed, and number two, whether anyone liked it or not, the tribal chief and his wise man are going to work with the chief content officer, Paul Levesque, and we're going to drive the narrative. I don't care if Cody Rhodes liked it. I would hope that he does. I don't care if he does. I don't care if Dwayne Johnson likes it. I would hope that he does. And I don't care if he does. I'm going to sell it to Paul Levesque. I'm going to keep it honest at the core of the characters. So no matter what the pivot, or what the change, or what the detour is going to be in our storyline, we're going to remain honest to the characters. We're never going to violate the core of who the tribal chief or who the wise man is. And as long as we remain authentic within these characters, then there's no swerve that they can throw us that we can't navigate and handle and put in a direction that not only are we comfortable with, but that we're comfortable vouching to each other. The audience is gonna love this. They're gonna pay to see it. They're gonna get their money's worth. And when they leave, they're gonna wanna know what comes next. And as long as Roman and I feel that, then it doesn't matter who's changing what. We're gonna craft it in our way and our narrative so that it fits for an authentic presentation that the audience can respect. And I use this word intentionally, all puns intended, that the audience can acknowledge.
And they did. And they did. I mean,
Roman, get up.
whereas WrestleMania 40 might have been the best ending to a WrestleMania ever. I don't remember ever experiencing a collective joy and celebration for the industry, not just for the match, but the entire business, like I did for WrestleMania 40. When did you and Paul Levesque establish that level of a relationship? He clearly has a profound respect for you. We heard comments that he made to you as he was giving you your Hall of Fame ring. He acknowledged, there's that word again, your contributions to the business in a way that maybe nobody has contributed. When did that level of respect really form that you could have that relationship?
I can't speak for Paul Levesque. I don't know when or where he may have garnered that level of respect for me. I can tell you, I've always been a Paul Levesque guy. I've always had a lot of respect for Paul Levesque. I met him for the first time when we had ECW participation on Monday Night Raw, and I met him backstage, and I don't know what the conversation was completely, but it was about Killer Kowalski and the manner in which he was trained, and the appreciation that he had for the history of the business, but the vision that he had, that as much as I love the past and I'm grounded in the rudimentary and the fundamental ways of the business, we got to push it forward. Even back then in '97, I was like, wow, this guy has his finger on the pulse of the future. Working with Paul Levesque today is an absolute honor, because he's a collaborator. He loves to collaborate. He loves to hear different ideas, and he likes to implement them. It's the same as if the president decides tomorrow, let's invade Canada. Invading Canada is a good idea. Too much attention to the wall in Mexico. Let's go to Canada. And the vice president says, Mr. President, I don't think we should invade Canada. And then you have a general that goes, yeah, let's do that. And we'll start with Winnipeg, because that place is the shits. So let's go there. And and another person goes, let's conquer Montreal, because all they do is speak French, those bastards. And someone else goes, what do you want to do in Canada? And finally the president sits there and says, okay, just Vancouver. Let's just go get British Columbia, because that's where all the good weed is in Canada. And they all go, yeah, let's do that. So Paul Levesque listens to the room, and then he collaborates, and he takes the best of everyone's ideas, and better than anyone I've ever seen, he edits them down into the format of the overall big picture, and he makes it fit in the construct on Monday Night Raw of 16 segments, and on SmackDown of 11 segments, and on Premium Live event of how long that event is going to go, 1 day or 2. And he does it seamlessly and masterfully, because more than anything else, he has the ability to listen and never think, well, who are you to tell me about the wrestling business? He wants to know what you think, because then he's getting an idea that can only make his ideas better. And that level of collaboration at the top, I don't know anybody in the history of this industry that does it as well as Paul Levesque.
Wow. Wow. And by the way, if he wants to hear what I think, he'll listen to anybody.
I concur with your assessment, sir.
Did you know that going in? Because clearly there are two different eras of WWE. There are multiple eras, but you know what I'm saying? From a creative perspective, and the Bloodline remained the top act through two different eras of creative control. Was there any apprehension about a new creative regime coming in and not being as high on the Bloodline as the previous one?
I say this with all false humility aside. I could not imagine someone coming in in this era and saying, yeah, I've seen enough of the bloodline, enough of them. That's it. All right, Roman, thanks a lot. See you later. Anyone that looks at, it's like some people try to rail me over the Coles last year. Like, oh, Paul Heyman said they're only in the third inning. What a jerk off Paul Heyman is. I got news for you.
What inning?
I don't even think we're in the third inning yet. And now that you see the emergence of Solo and Jacob Fatu and the Tongans and the fact that they are a real threat, the first time a real threat to Roman Reigns' dominance, to Roman Reigns sitting at the head of the table, to Roman Reigns being the top star, to Roman Reigns actually being the tribal chief. How many stories can we tell from the position that we're in now? You don't know what Jimmy Uso's stance on this is. You don't know what Jey Uso's stance on this is. You don't know if or when the Wise Man will return. You don't know who else Solo may or may not have in his back pocket ready to debut. You don't know what our moves, what Roman Reigns' moves, what my moves, what anybody's moves can be. All you know is that Roman Reigns is back. He's back to reclaim the title of Tribal Chief from Solo, and Solo has so much backup right now that Roman's in deep, deep, deep trouble. So, to come full circle, I can't imagine someone coming into power in this company and saying, we've told the entire story of the bloodline. I see someone coming into power saying, oh my God, look what I get to play with now.
How cool was it? How big of a deal was it? How meaningful was it that when you went into the Hall of Fame, not only was it in Philadelphia, not only did you get to have your family there, not only was it at, in my opinion, the height of your creative work, it's not exactly a down, it's, you're doing the best work you've ever done, but the impossible happened, and you were able to have CM Punk in the front row. Any other Hall of Fame never would have happened. But the original, I'm a Paul Heyman guy, CM Punk got to be sitting there. Is it surreal to have him back, to have him there?
No, it's destiny, really. CM Punk is back where he belongs. And that's on top in WWE. And like any other rebel, it's the old song, you have to go through hell before you get to heaven. And CM Punk, the struggle is real. And he is a rebel. To this day, he's a rebel. But the rebel would never reach the top. The rebel will never get his due on his own merit if he doesn't go through pure, blatant, bloody hell. And that hell could not only be in WWE. He had to go through hell elsewhere as well. And everybody had to see it and hear about it and know about it and sit there and go, my God, will somebody please one time give this talented man the platform that he deserves. It's been over 20 years now that he's been on the national stage and he still doesn't get a chance to demonstrate his greatness. And now, truly for the first time, he has a chance to step out from the hell that he's been going through. And of course, again, having to pay his dues in front of the world. As soon as he's getting started, he gets terribly injured and taken off the roster. So his fight to come back, and he came back months earlier than any doctor could have predicted, because that's how badly he wanted to get back into the mix and on top in WWE. So to see him in the front row with my children, was it surreal? No, actually it was very, very, very real. And the Hall of Fame would not have been the same to me if that wasn't the case.
Yeah. I think destiny is a right word when it comes to talking about stuff like that. When I feel like Lesnar is a guy who has mastered the craft of professional wrestling. Physically, he always had it. But from the psychology of it, from the storytelling of it, from the I'm not gonna do this until right now, and now I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be the most meaningful thing on the show. When do you think Brock Lesnar got to the point where psychologically and storytelling-wise, the art, not the sport of it, the art of pro wrestling was mastered for him? Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Check, 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 check.
I think we have a sound guy from New Jersey.
Yeah!
Check, check, there we go. This one is working from... Oh, there you go, there you go.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. I've just been told our sound guy is from Jacksonville. You'll get it in about 3 seconds. 3. Okay. Brock Lesnar always had it. Brock Lesnar always understood. Brock Lesnar always knew he was unique. He was different. He wasn't going to be the same as everybody else. And the more he grew in stature and leverage, the more we could dictate the manner in which he was going to be presented. There's no one like Brock Lesnar. I mean, even his most diehard competitors will tell you, there's no one like Brock Lesnar. So we were not going to ever put him in a position where he was just gonna be like everybody else.
Well, look, Paul, I was watching a lot of interviews with you leading up to this, and in just about every single one, they bring up how ECW changed the wrestling business. And I think that is 100% true. What I think is also true is that people have not yet realized how much the bloodline has changed the wrestling business. I think ECW moved the wrestling business forward. I think the bloodline has elevated the wrestling business. And as a fan, I would just simply like to thank you for it. Can we thank Paul Heyman? Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest manager / advocate / creative mind / color commentator / special counsel and wise man to the original tribal chief, Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you guys. I'll be back here tomorrow with Rey Mysterio, so come on back. We appreciate you.